Welcome back to Timeless Wisdom podcast. Ever feel like life's big questions are just kind of out of reach, like you're fumbling around in the dark?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's a really common feeling. But here's the thing. The Quran actually gives us a way to shine a light on these big abstract concepts. It uses tangible examples to clarify spiritual truth.
Okay, so are we talking about metaphors, like how the Quran uses metaphors to help us understand faith better?
You got it. Exactly. Think about it this way. You hear the phrase, a broken heart is like broken glass. It instantly makes you feel that sharp, painful feeling, right? It draws on something tangible, something we can relate to. The Quran does this, but on a much grander scale, making spiritual ideas accessible to everyone.
That's really interesting. It's not just about laying down the lie. It's more about meeting people where they are.
Exactly. And the Quran actually addresses this directly. Chapter 17, verse 89 says, "And indeed, we have illustrated all kinds of examples in the Quran for mankind, yet most men did not accept and insisted on disbelief." It's almost like it's saying, hey, we're giving you all these relatable examples, so pay attention.
Wow, that's powerful. So what kind of examples are we actually talking about? What does the Quran compare these big concepts to?
Well, a great example is the concept of believing in only one God, monotheism. Quran 39.29 uses this really brilliant analogy. Imagine working for multiple bosses and they're all giving you conflicting orders. It would be total chaos.
Well, absolutely. I can barely handle one boss sometimes.
Right, exactly. Now think about the contrast of having just one consistent, reliable boss. So much more peaceful and productive, right? That's the essence of what the Quran is illustrating here. Worshiping multiple gods is like those conflicting bosses, while worshiping one God is like having that single dependable leader.
I see. It makes the whole concept so much clearer. So are all the examples in the Quran about comparing good versus bad, or are there different types of metaphors too?
There are definitely other types. Quran 16.76 really stands out to me. It contrasts worshiping idols with worshiping God. Imagine you're taking care of someone completely helpless, someone who offers you zero benefit in return. It's a burden, like a totally one-sided relationship.
Okay, yeah, I see where you're going with this.
And then it compares worshiping God to following a just and guiding leader, someone who provides for you, who sets you on the right path.
So it's getting at the difference between a relationship that kind of drains you versus one that empowers you, even using those simple everyday situations to illustrate it.
Exactly. Tangible experiences help us grasp that deeper spiritual truth. But are there examples that are less about comparison and more about imagery, more poetic?
Oh, absolutely. Quran 24.35 is one of the most beautiful. It describes God's light using this image of a lantern.
Light is such a powerful symbol, right? Across so many cultures and beliefs. It always seems to represent knowledge or hope.
Exactly. The Quran paints this really vivid picture. A niche in a wall, holding a lantern, encased in crystal, shining like a radiant star. And the oil fueling it is so pure, it almost glows on its own.
It's such a gorgeous image, right? And just like that lantern illuminates a room, God's light illuminates our hearts and minds, guiding us towards truth.
Yeah, it brings to mind that idea of enlightenment, which a lot of spiritual traditions talk about, like that sudden clarity.
Exactly. And what's so fascinating is that even back then, the Quran understood the power of framing, which is a big topic in psychology today, right? The way we think about things, the way we frame them in our minds has a huge impact on our emotions and behavior.
Oh, that's so interesting. So you're saying these metaphors are almost like cognitive reframing tools. If you frame a challenge as a learning opportunity, it feels less daunting.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. These Quranic metaphors reframe complex spiritual ideas in a way that makes them relatable to the human experience, even centuries ago.
It's almost like the Quran was ahead of its time in understanding how our minds work. It's not just theoretical, it's actually giving us tools to understand and live better.
Absolutely. And speaking of tools, one of the most powerful ones the Quran gives us is this concept of God's light as a guide. Let's go back to that lantern. What can it teach us about actually living our lives?
Well, if you think about it, a lantern dispels darkness, right? God's light does the same for our confusion, our doubts. It helps us see clearly, to know the difference between right and wrong. It's like having that inner compass.
Exactly. But a physical lantern needs fuel to burn bright, right? Our connection to God's light, it needs to be nurtured too.
Okay, so what's the fuel for that connection?
Prayer, reflection, acts of kindness, compassion, seeking knowledge and understanding, all of these things keep us connected to that divine source of light. Think of them like the oil in that lantern, keeping that flame burning bright.
That's beautiful. And when that flame is strong, we're less likely to stumble. less likely to be swayed by negativity.
Exactly. It's like the Quran is giving us this roadmap for this journey called life, one where we can walk with more clarity, more purpose.
It goes beyond just believing. It's about doing, about taking action, guided by that inner light, by that sense of purpose.
You got it. And that action can be as simple as pausing for reflection, or a kind word to a stranger, or taking a step towards a goal that aligns with your values.
It's about aligning our actions with that inner light that the Quran is pointing us towards.
Exactly. And when we do that, we start to experience this peace, this fulfillment, a feeling of connection to something greater than ourselves. And this is where it gets really interesting, because modern psychology talks about this too. That sense of purpose, of meaning being crucial to well-being.
It's like the Quran isn't just a book of scripture. It's a guidebook for a meaningful life.
Yeah.
And one that's backed up by what we're learning about the human mind today.
Yeah, it's amazing how these ancient teachings are so relevant to what we're learning today. It really speaks to the timelessness of the Quran. And it brings us to something really important. If someone's listening right now and they're feeling kind of lost, like they're fumbling in the dark, what would you say to them?
I'd say look to these examples in the Quran, like really reflect on their meaning. Don't just read the words, but let them sink in. See how they can shed light on your own path, on your own challenges.
That's beautiful. And don't be afraid to reach out to people who've studied these teachings. Ask questions, seek understanding. We all have that potential to connect with that inner light, to find our way.
It's about taking those first steps, however small they might seem, trusting that the light will guide us.
And remember, even the longest journey starts with a single step. We don't achieve perfection overnight. It's about consistent action, guided by that inner compass.
It's about trusting the process and using these metaphors as tools to help us along the way. This has been such an insightful conversation. It's really opened my eyes to the power of these metaphors, how they make the Quran's wisdom so accessible.
It's been a pleasure sharing these insights. And remember, the journey of discovery never really ends. There's always more to learn, more to explore, more to experience.
So as we wrap up our deep dive today into the Quran's use of metaphors, what's the one key takeaway you hope listeners will carry with them?
I'd say this. The Quran isn't just a book of abstract ideas. It's a guidebook for living a meaningful life. And it uses these really relatable examples to make those truths understandable to everyone.
It's not about memorizing the words, it's about reflecting on those examples and seeing how they actually apply to our lives.
You got it. It's about taking those timeless teachings and making them relevant to our modern experiences.
It's about letting that inner light guide our steps, illuminate our path.
Beautifully put. And as we all continue on our own journeys, let's remember to support each other, share our insights, help each other navigate life's complexities.
Because we really are all on this journey together. And that shared journey is a lot brighter when we have that light of wisdom to guide us.
I couldn't agree more. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And for our listeners, keep exploring, keep reflecting, and keep letting those Quranic metaphors illuminate your own path.
That wisdom is there, waiting to be discovered. Until next time, keep seeking, keep growing, and keep diving deep. And speaking of pursuing your goals, if you're looking for guidance and inspiration on your entrepreneurial journey, make sure to check out our channel, The Broke Entrepreneur.
It's a fantastic resource for anyone who's dreaming of building a successful business, no matter where they are on their journey.
And remember, the Quran's wisdom is timeless. Apply it today.